me.
What are you eating, Quessy?
We made lamb burgers with Greek pasta salad.
Wow.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, the first couple months of this, we were doing a bunch of takeout, and now we gained the COVID-19. Let's try. We literally have nowhere else to go. Let's try and be a little bit better about food.
Mm-hmm. I had a meatball sub. I'm not helping myself.
How's everyone else doing?
Doing pretty good.
Mhm.
I've been doing that thing like when you work in a place and you know you're going to get tired of all the food that's around. So you like move through it as slowly as possible. I've been doing that. And so I just started with microwave popcorn instead of popcorn in a bag.
Yeah.
And it's like a big expansion.
Oh, now you're cooking.
Yeah, now I'm cooking. Yeah, I cannot cook, so that's as close as it gets.
How have these shows been going? You've been hosting these for a couple of weeks now, Angela, right?
Yeah, since the beginning of quarantine. So I've run through every single thing that has ever happened to me. And a couple weeks ago, I decided I could finally start over. So it feels nice now.
Well, I feel that's good because I'm always a little bit more anxious about doing storytelling shows because I'm like, oh, I don't know if I have like an interesting story on this topic. And it sounds now you have like a bunch locked and loaded now.
Yeah, I have a bunch at this point, and they're not all great, but they're there.
You just need to tell a story. That's it.
Okay, everybody ready?
I think we're ready.
Okay.
We don't have Latasha yet. She we'll work on her. I think she's in the chat, in the Facebook chat, hanging out.
Okay, I'm just going to start the show.
Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Tales from the Inside. And now, would you please welcome your host, Angela Sawyer.
Hi. It's very nice to see you. Thanks for being here. This is Tales from the Inside. It's a storytelling show which, in one form or another, has actually been running for several years. But it used to be in my living room. For a while, it was in my bedroom. And it started long ago inside a tiny record store. And now it's in a tiny computer. And you're all very, very small. So it's very nice to see your faces. The thing that I like about storytelling in general is that it's a really nice way to kind of directly download somebody else's perspective, and it's very, for me, it's very low key. Like it's just kind of the kind of thing that you would say at a party talking to some people. So I feel like it's something everyone can do. And yet comedians are also very good at it because they have fun lives and make bad decisions. And I like hearing about those things. So I also, one of the things I like about the show is that I get to have people on that I really just like them and like hearing what's going on in their brains. And I give everybody their own theme and then just kind of let them fly and we see what happens. And usually people are still working out what they're saying in real time, which I like a lot because everybody, not now, because we're all sitting in our houses and or getting freaked out having to go somewhere. But most of the time as a performer, you get to practice what you're going to say. And you've said it many, many times in many, many different kinds of situations. And you get to sort of like have all your gestures down and that kind of stuff, but you don't ever get to practice like just being with people, like being yourself while you're thinking out loud. And I think that's a cool part of performing. That's what the show is for. And I'm going to start so that nobody else has to. And I'm very excited because if you've been following along, this online version of the show has been running since the end of March. And so I have now said every bad thing that ever happened to me, every dumb thing that I've ever done. It's all out there in Facebook videos now. And I got to the point where I decided I could start over. So now I have stories again. And that's nice. So today, I'm going to talk about a time that is super different from now. And that is when I was a little kid. I grew up in Colorado in the 1970s. And being a kid at that time, the general advice that people had for taking care of children was to put them in reverse jail, meaning that you would lock them outside as often and as long as possible. And so everybody that I knew when I was a kid, as soon as the sun came up, you were thrown out of your house with no supervision and no adults, and you weren't allowed to come back until the sun went down. So that made for a weird group of just stray children roving in neighborhoods a lot. And well, I grew up in Colorado, so it was a very outdoorsy sort of place. Colorado's bland. If you have not been there, they need their weed law there. It's real important that they have it because it's a bland place. There's a lot of nice nature and very people with smiles, and I didn't like it. Anyway, I like it here in Boston where people are pissed off and drunk. So when you're a kid, I think at least before you find out what sex is, the worst possible thing that can happen to you is a thing that happened to me. We were stuck outside all the time, and mostly it went well. I did well in that social environment. I was the absolute queen of this game that we all used to play called Who Can Put Their Butt on the Electric Fence the Longest. Fantastic game. I recommend it to you. I'll tell you how to win. It's very cool. It's a very cool game. The trick is you put your butt on the electric fence and then you squint at the other people so that they feel intimidated. And then you just pretend like that fence is your first vibrator and you're good to go. Very easy going. Yeah, I wish that I could have dated that fence much longer than I did. Another game that we used to play when I was a kid there got me in more trouble. So where I grew up, we lived, I don't know if it's still like this, but in places outside of a city, where I lived, there was the nuclear power plant, and then there was the land around the nuclear power plant that nobody could buy. And then there was the land around that land that was very, very inexpensive. And that is where we lived. So I lived in a neighborhood that had no grass because it wouldn't grow. And there was one family, it was just like a little dirt U off of a highway that went to the nuclear power plant and nowhere else. And on the little dirt road that I lived on, there was one family that would buy grass, they would buy sod and put it all over their lawn. And then 3 months later it would die and they would buy it again. And everyone else just had dirt. And so the house with the grass, their house also, most people in that area built the houses that they lived in. And everyone built their house to face away from the nuclear power plant so that they wouldn't have to look at it, except the people with the sod. They built their house facing the other way. So I don't know what the story was exactly. I didn't know them that well. But that was the house where we played this particular game. And this was a game with no name because it was a horror show of a game, and I'm glad we didn't name it. We played it at Connie's house, and Connie had all the sod, and in the backyard behind her house, it seemed like somebody had started to put in a pool because there was this big rectangle of just missing earth. And then they had put a little tiny 1 brick high wall around the edge of the rectangle of missing dirt. Thought around that. And then Connie's parents just put 5 or 6 German Shepherds inside that hole, making a terror dome for children. just a large trap to kill children in the back of their house. So our game was we would walk over to Connie's house, and then we would walk around the bricks on the edge of the hole. And of course, the dogs were very happy to see people because they're stuck in a hole all day. It's hot out and whatnot. So they would jump up and try and get our attention, and we would be very scared. And that was the whole game. And here's what happened. The worst possible thing when you're a kid is that you get dog poop on you. And one day I fell in the hole. Of course I did. I thought up until that day, I had heard the expression getting the wind knocked out of you. And I thought that it was an expression that people used. And then I fell in that hole and I realized, no, that's a thing that happens to your lungs. So I fell in and I couldn't breathe. And a bunch of German Shepherds decided to come for my face. And I thought that I had died and that Satan's hordes were going to take my face from me and never give it back. So I was very freaked out and couldn't breathe and wanted to yell. And of course, my neighborhood friends, we were little kids, so they all ran away. That's what kids do. So I magically, through the power of sheer adrenaline, I clambered up back out of the hole and I ran to the front of the house. And lucky for me, I was freaking out. I was like breathing way too hard, just having a big panic attack. And right as I got to the front of Connie's house on the edge of the sod, the bus driver came driving down the street. Where I lived, the bus driver was a lot like the Simpsons bus driver. He was a guy who sold goat's milk on the side out of his bus and never wore shoes. And he had a whole bunch of kids in a general store, which was his house, where he did a brisk business in live bunnies, goat's milk, and little candy necklaces for children that you could eat. So he was, I don't know if he was a trusted adult, but he was as good as I had. And, to be fair, he was very non-judgmental. Like, he drove to his bus at, 4.5 miles an hour, probably high out of his skull. And he saw me, basically a small tomato in the shape of a child, running at his bus, completely freaked out. And he opened the bus door, which impresses me to this day. I don't know if you guys were weird kids, but I was. So I remember the experience of having an adult see you, judge you, and then just leave. And this guy saw this like fat little girl freaking out and was like, come on in the bus. So he opened up the door and I ran onto the bus, and I was just starting to be able to breathe well enough to talk. And he shut the door and he was like, hey, are you okay? And my house was only a couple houses away. So I think his idea was he was just going to drop me at my house. And I started to calm down. And then the smell of dog shit hit me. And then I saw it hit him. And then I turned to the side and saw a bus full of children. And I watched it hit each row, one at a time, all the way to the back of the bus. And that is the story of the worst thing that ever happened to me before I discovered sex. So that's my story. I appreciate you guys listening to me. So our next performer is fantastic. Our first performer for the evening. She is a member of the Boston Renegades, which is a football team. They just had a documentary made about them. It's really cool. You should check it out. It was on ESPN. She's a fantastic storyteller. She's very, very funny. I'm very psyched to have her. So please put your hands together right now for Ali Genero.
Hey! Oh, geez, what did I do? Literally the worst possible way to start on a high note. All right. So my theme was a time that is opposite of now, which I thought was interesting. So I thought I'd do the one about when I was in the Army, because the opposite of that is now I am kicked out of the Army. So that's pretty much the complete opposite. And before you think I did anything cool, I didn't do any war crimes or anything. I did something way less cool, which was take way too much cough medicine, and that really did it. And it all started when when we're in the Army. In order to get high, you got to be a little bit creative with it. And so what we had to do was we couldn't smoke weed because we'd piss hot. So the way to work around it is either smoke K2 or just take a shitload of cough medicine. And that's what I did. And I started to gain a huge tolerance over a course of time. And I eventually started taking 68 pills of cough medicine, a scooch too much. And I had a friend of mine who was like, "Oh, what are you doing tonight?" And I was like, "I'm gonna get high as fuck." And he was like, "Oh, really? What are you doing?" I'm like, "Doing this cough medicine." And he's like, "Oh, let me get in on that." And I'm like, "Okay, here, you can do 8. And he was just like, "No, I want to do the same amount you're doing." And I was like, "Okay, whatever, man." And so I basically almost killed this man because I gave him 68 pills of cough medicine. We just took it all in one gulp. And I told him, I warned him. I was like, "Yo, when you take this, you're gonna throw up. I'm used to it by now, but you're gonna throw up. And when you throw up, you're gonna come up from that toilet bowl in another world, essentially." And not surprising, he fucking throws up, right? And I'm fucking sitting there rubbing his back like a good fucking battle buddy, all right? And he's just throwing up. And then he stops and he looks up at me, and I can tell he is not with us anymore. He's in another world. And so I help him up. And as he's walking walking around, he can't move his joints. He's doing this thing that's called robo walking, which you walk like a robot. And he's just freaking out. And he's telling me that the little man flipped his switch. And I had no idea what that meant. So I just kind of improvised. And he's just like, so I just go up to his ear and I whisper, "Flick," and I flick his ear. And he just pops up and he's totally fine. Nothing ever happened. It was weird. I was like, "Okay, I guess that works." And he's walking normal. And I'm like, "Yo, you just threw up. You probably have a nasty taste in your mouth. Let's go have a cigarette outside and try to figure this out." But when you're in the Army, there's this thing where there's guards that are guarding the barracks. So we had to devise a plan and prepare to walk by the guards, right? And he's still robo walking at somewhat. So I teach him how to walk again. And I'm like, all we got to do is just walk right past these guys right outside. We'll have a cigarette. It'll be cool. And what I didn't know is that I walked by the guards, but what I thought was completely normal walking at a normal speed. I was like fucking hoofing it. And for me, I thought I was just walking totally normal. And so I fucking bolted right out of the barracks. And then I start smoking a cigarette. And then I notice my buddy didn't follow me behind. And so I put out my cigarette and I walk back in. And I see my buddy doubled over, hands on his knees, just screaming, "The little man flipped my switch. The little man flipped my switch." And to me, I'm like, oh, fuck, this is the worst possible thing. And so the guards come, they're called CQ, I think it's called CQ. We'll call it CQ. Staff duty, one of those. And so they come out, CQ comes out and is like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? What's going on? And I'm like, he's fine. He's just goofing around. And so I like I whisper in his ear, and I'm just like, flick. And then he just jumps up. He jumps right back up. And they're just like, all right, it's too late. We already called the cops. He's freaking out. And I'm like, oh no, you didn't call the cops. And then they were like, yeah, we called the cops, the military police. And then, so I just start walking outside trying to get some fresh air. And at this time, it was night. It was like 9 p.m. But right when I walked outside, that's when my cough medicine hit me. And everything was just like bright, shiny, sunshiny. It was amazing. It was like a fairy tale. There was like people having a picnic. Their sun was beaming down, just like, you fucking got this. You're nailing this right now. But I am not nailing this at all. I was going up to people who I thought were having a picnic. And I was like, oh, what a lovely day we're having, right? Nope. Those weren't people having a picnic. Those were just random bystanders concerned for my my well-being. And then all of a sudden, this big CID guy comes. It's like a criminal investigation guy who works for the military. And he's fucking like huge, yoked up dude. And apparently what I was doing was I was playing peekaboo with this man, just like not just trying to make him go away. And he's just saying, what are you doing? What are you on? What's going on? And I'm just like, fucking, you're not here. You're not here. Oh shit, you're still here. You're still here. And then as I'm talking to this guy, there's a bunch of people surrounding my buddy. And yet again, I hear from this crowd, the little man flipped my switch. So I'm like, I can fix this. I know what to do. So I fucking bolt from this CID guy. I push my way through this crowd of people. There's paramedics there. And I'm just like, I grab him by the head and I just go flick. And he jumps up and everybody's like fucking like, what does this mean? Like, what, how did you do this? How did you fix this? And I'm just like, it's just the little man, man. It's just the fucking little man. You got to flip his switch. And they were like, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about, but we're going to put him in this ambulance. And to me, the ambulance was like a house on wheels. I don't know why. That's not really an important part of the story, but to me, it looked like a house on wheels. And then they told me, they were like, hey, your buddy probably doesn't want to be alone at a time like this. And that's how they tricked me to get onto the ambulance as well. So I'm on the ambulance, high as fuck, not like tied down or anything. I'm just sitting in a chair, right? And so I just start opening up drawers. And I'm like, what is this? What does this do? What is this? And I'm like freaking out. And they're like, you're gonna get me fired. Like you're messing up the whole place. And eventually, I finally calm down, and they get us into this ambulance, to the hospital. And we get to the hospital, and then they put my buddy in a wheelchair. And then they were like, hey, maybe you should go in a wheelchair too, just in case your friend's embarrassed about being in a wheelchair. So I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds about right. So now we're being wheeled around in this wheelchair, and we're trying to recollect, like, figure out what actually happened, because we're just living in like 5-minute increments of time. And I look over at him. I'm like, what happened? Why are we in the hospital? And he was like, oh, I think you popped a tire while we were driving. And I'm like, that makes absolutely no sense. And then I look over at him and I'm like, I think we hit a deer. I think that's what happened. Now we're just like dazed and confused in this fucking hospital, and we're getting fixed up. And then we finally get put in our rooms, and they put all this stuff on me. Like, they put all these sticky stuff on me with wires and shit. And then as I'm falling asleep, I hear my buddy across the hall going, we got this. And I'm like, yeah, we got this. And everybody's like, these people are fucking idiots. And then I fall asleep and I wake up and I see all these things attached to me. And my first thought is the military is doing experiments on me. So I just fucking go in a blind rage and ripping all these things out like Wolverine from the fucking X-Men movies, just fucking going crazy. And everything starts beeping. And then the doctor comes in, and it's just like, I'm like, oh my God, what was that? Was that my charger? I thought it was a charger that was attached to me that was like keeping me alive. And then eventually I fell asleep. They fixed me up, and we got wheeled out of the hospital, and my first sergeant, and everybody was mad at me. And that's the reason I got kicked out of the Army.
Yay!
Thank you.
That was fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
They don't deserve you.
I think they're glad to be rid of me. I think that. Yeah.
I'll tell you this. I have never taken 68, but I have taken a whole box of cough medicine pills. A few years ago, I was living inside a store, which sounds like a story, but it really wasn't much of one. I just didn't have a house. And I got a really bad like chest infection, and I didn't have a lot of insurance or a lot of money. So I was just like, whatever, I'll just go to CVS and get a bunch of cough medicine, and I'll, take a day, rest, I'll be fine. So I went to CVS and I kept coughing, and I was like, I bought a couple boxes of cough medicine, and I was taking them, and I wasn't really keeping track. And I kept coughing, so I kind of kept taking them. And then I started texting my friend just because, I was lying around with nothing to do. Mm. And I didn't realize it, but apparently I texted my friend that I was a ghost and had stopped breathing hours ago. So my friend texted me back. My friend Steve was like, hey, I'm going to come check on you. And I was like, oh, you don't really have to check on me. I'm just a ghost now. And he came and knocked on the window of the store, and I opened the door, and he was like, you look kind of fucked up. And I was like, no, I don't know how you can see me, but I'm not fucked up. I'm just a ghost. It's fine. And he was like, we're going to go to the doctor right now. It was like 3:00 in the morning. He's like, we're going to go. And I was like, I'm not sure. I kept telling him that I wasn't sure I could ride in a car because as a ghost, I might fall through the floor and get left on the street when the car pulled up. So he took me to the ER, and the ER nurse was like, what's going on with you? And I was like, I just have this cough that I can't get rid of. And they did a bunch of things, and then she was like, I think you're just very high. Which is honestly the right problem to have at the ER. They just make you go home and then you get better and you're fine. So I can't identify. It definitely, cough medicine will fuck you up if you take enough of it.
Oh yeah.
And it won't fix your cough. It won't work.
Yeah.
Okay, so our next performer, I want to make sure that we can hear and see her. Latasha, can you hear me? Oh, she's still working on it. We'll get her. So we're going to see if we can get her. Latasha Hughes Thompson is a comedian. Yeah, we got her. She's a comedian out of Worcester. She's very, very funny. I'm really, really glad that I was able to get her on here. I'm going to let her tell you a story. I can't wait to see what she has to say. Please put your hands together right now for Latasha Hughes Thompson.
Hey, hi everybody. Sorry for the not so clear clarity. Joke's on me. A bit of a crack on my phone, but I guess I can still get my story out. Angela got me on, I think the theme, and I like to try to stick to the task. So the task was the one thing that I quit and I was glad about. One thing I quit and I was glad about. Just my Black girl magic. I'm brown, Miss Angela. We don't get to not fight or give up on too much. But there was one thing I did give up on, well, two things I like to share with you. I gave up on, first thing, almost in the vein of
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're sorry to do this right now. We're having some technical difficulties. So what we're going to do is we're just going to throw.
I stood up
Are you there?
and I put my hand over my heart like you're supposed to. And the words wouldn't come out. The words wouldn't come out for the Pledge of Allegiance. And somehow I was having a moment. I quietly knew and understood that although they were really beautiful words and there was a message to be sent as an American, that message really wasn't for me. That message wasn't including me in the way that the words I was made to recite were resounding for everybody else in the classroom. And I remember my sixth grade teacher, who I recently lost, we all recently lost, Miss Miller, Belmont Street Community School. We lost her recently, about a couple months ago. She looked at me and she knew what was going on, and I just appreciated her for allowing me to have that moment. Again, I wasn't disrespectful, I wasn't rude. It was just an awakening that moving forward, my life, although it would look to be horizontal, is going to be parallel moving forward as an African-American female in this country moving forward. So different, yeah, but we all have that epiphany, all of us. Even Martin Luther King Jr. had the same kind of disclosure when he was playing with his best friend. He had a little white boy that he played with. It was best friend. Played with him all the time until the one day his best friend told him after summer break that he could no longer play with him. And this was documented. He was really severely depressed after this. And he explained to him why. And I guess that was the age that white America had placed on Black children of color, that was when they became the word I will not use. Okay, that was when you were no longer a sweet little boy or a sweet little girl. That's when you grew up to be the other. And that's when separation happened. And when I had that moment, I think a lot of small moments that happened to me prior came to mind, like the first time I noticed when I went into an elevator as a female, a little Black girl, white females would go to the corner of the elevator and clutch their purse, or walking on the sidewalk, and they would kind of scoot on the inner side or out to kind of get away from you. But you don't really understand why. You don't really know what's going on. I do remember going on a field trip. I think it was like 4th grade, 5th grade, something like that. And little girl came up to me, and she couldn't have been more than 3 or 4 years old. She was with her mom. And she says, "Oh, Mom, look, it's a chocolate baby. It's a chocolate baby." And the way that she said it, I knew and understood that those were the words she was being taught. You know, those are the words she was being taught in communication, that there are other people in the world that, you know, look different, that different. But that was the first time I was ever, again, made to know that I was different, not because of my personality or, you know, something that I was wearing, like my clothes, but it was because specifically because I was Black. And I know that we are going right now through a lot, and I just wanted to use this platform, this opportunity to kind of just let everybody know we are now in a place where we can have these conversations. We know what's right, we know what's wrong, and people are just standing up, and they're not concerned too much about what other people are saying. They just want to do what's right. My girlfriend bought a shirt here, because we have to do this, guys. We have to vote. I want to show you. Vote. That's your voice. Okay, that's your voice. We have a chance right now to change the world. The world's changing right now. I mean, with the way we go to school, the way we interact, all of that. This is a fantastic and a crazy time to be alive. And it's a time where we can really get together and move forward. I quit singing the Pledge of Allegiance at 6th grade because I knew at that age what it meant. Or what it didn't mean for me. And it wasn't anything bad. I was actually grateful at that moment. I was glad that I did, not because I didn't want to be a patron, but because I was able to understand that shift and see my matrix, you know, the movie The Matrix. And it was done in a peaceful and a loving environment because, again, Miss Miller saw, knew, and understood. Never questioned me. Didn't call my parents, didn't pull me aside and say that I was being disrespectful or belligerent. This was in the 80s, guys, okay? She allowed me to have my moment, and again, I was very respectful. I stood up, I did what I was supposed to do. The words just never came out of my mouth again. But on another note, something that I gave up on and I was glad I did, marriage. A lot of people don't believe that. They don't believe that I was married and have 5 kids. That is true. That is not a joke. It was not very healthy. So again, using the platform to tell a story, but also to use my voice in terms of choices and making a decision. When it's toxic and it's not fruitful, it doesn't matter what your circumstances are. You have a choice and you should make a decision and you should take action. So with 5 kids, some on my hip and, you know, on my back, whatever you want to call it, I left and I've been blessed ever since. You just have to believe in yourself, know that you can do it and that you are covered. If I can say that, you are blessed. We are all blessed. It's never worth it to stay in a situation that is not beneficial to you. Okay. And besides, orange is one of my best colors. You know, I don't know, it was me or him. That's all I know. It was me or him. I'm not promoting violence. Everybody knows that I'm not a violent person, but that was 2 things that I did that I had to quit. I don't think I have anything else, Miss Angela, that we had to quit on, because again, we have to keep it moving. That I quit and I was glad about. So I don't know if I've gone over my time or if I have more.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Latasha. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
It's a fantastic couple of stories.
Yeah.
I think if you're in a relationship that isn't serving you, making you feel like you belong there, then you're a better mom for leaving. That's you know,
right.
That's the right
Yeah.
thing to do for your kids.
Yeah.
I think that Black liberation is everybody's liberation, and but I wasn't sharp enough to figure out to stop saying the Pledge of Allegiance when I was a kid. I did, however, the one
kids.
Yeah, I wasn't smart enough to figure that out, but I did. I did something that was worse. I think you can tell a lot about a person from how they react as a child to being told about Santa. And some people see the glass half full, some people see the glass half empty. My mom sat me down when I was about 7 or 8 years old, and she, she was like, "I'm going to give you an adult conversation," and she sat me down at the kitchen table and gave me a big glass of water, and then sat on the other side of the table like we were having a law conference, and told me that Santa was her, and I threw the glass at her.
Oh no!
That is as
Well,
close as I got.
now I know.
rebelling
Yeah,
against the Pledge of Allegiance.
that's cute. I love that. My sister shared a post, kind of piggybacking off what you said. My nephew, all of 7 years old, is kind of worried because he's young and he knows that holidays are coming around. We're getting through the summer. He's like, "Oh, mom, I'm wondering, is Santa gonna come?" And she's kind of like, she's a nurse, by the way, so this makes it even more hilarious. She's like, "Oh, I don't know. I think we need to pray for Santa. Santa messed around and got that COVID, so I hope he makes it." So we're not sure. We're not sure Santa's gonna make it or not. So yeah,
That's right.
story of
Santa's
Santa
like
goes
me.
on. I'm sure there's a lot of hilarious stories in regards to the realness or not realness of Santa Claus.
I appreciate that. Yeah, Santa's like me. He's old and overweight. He's definitely high risk for COVID.
Oh gosh, yeah. Are you kidding me? All the things we had to pull off. Yeah. Paying bills out way into March and Santa's still high off cookies. Like, this is not fair.
Well, thank you very, very much. That was a fantastic set of stories. I really, really appreciate you. Thanks for being here very much.
First timer, guys. I've never done this. She's like, storytelling. I'm like, are you kidding me? I was like, oh, why
We'll
not?
do it again.
Right?
We're
you're
gonna have
awesome.
you back soon.
Thank you.
Of course. Very glad to. So our next performer, I'm super psyched to have this guy on. He runs this fantastic show. He lives in New York, but he runs this fantastic show that's here in Boston, which he is nice enough to come back for once in a while, called Laughing Liberally. And it's occasionally existed, and I get to help, but he's in charge. He's really, really great. He's super, super funny. They're like, if you see a bill with him on it, you have to go, because he just gets all the best sets. He's really, really great. Please put your hands together right now for the fantastic Kwasi Mensah.
Whoa. I always love when Angela does that intro because she's downplaying that she's also one of the people that runs Laughing Liberally. And
I'm just the assistant, though.
And to tell you the truth, I still live in Boston. It's funny. Everyone thinks I'm in New York now. And no, I'm in Boston. I'm just back in New York all the time because I'm originally from there. And that's actually a big part of the story I'm telling tonight. My theme was basically when what was it, like when you didn't realize someone was watching?
Yes.
So that's my theme, and I'm gonna start off talking very sidestepping about a time in college. So the last couple of years I've gotten really big into bike riding, as a way to kind of lose weight, get around the city. I'm too cheap to get a car. Born and raised in New York, didn't actually get my driver's license until I was 26 after failing the driving test 2 or 3 times. So I'm not a big driver. And so I figured I was going to try and use bike riding as a way to get back in shape and be able to get around town on my own without relying on anyone. Now, I've tried this before in my life when I was in college, when I was between the summer between sophomore and junior year. And there's a reason why it took me 12 years to try it again. When I was in college, of course, I was this cheap. Of course, I was this college student, so I wanted everything as cheaply as possible. And so I got this bike for $30 off of Craigslist. And of course, cheap college Kwasi was just $30, that's a steal. Nowadays, I'm $30, that's a death trap. And so I get and I knew something was off because already one of the wheels was misaligned. It wasn't lining up properly. And I hammered it back in myself because I thought that's the smooth thing to do. And I remember getting my helmet also and being so proud of myself for figuring it out. And it's funny, being this big black man wearing like a bike helmet, it makes me like less intimidating to all these people. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And so I have this bike, and only on like the second day of having the bike, I remember I'm on my way. There's this big hill on campus that I'm starting to go down the hill. And I remember I'm starting to go down the hill, and I noticed this really attractive girl walking past. I'm like, oh, okay. I like turn my head to notice her while I'm trying to engage the brakes. And then the next thing I remember, I'm in a hospital bed with my mom sitting next to me. And I'm like, that's weird. My mom lives 6 hours away in New York. How did that happen? And it turns out, again, the whole idea of getting a $30 bike and not actually having a professional look at it, what turned out was that as I was heading down the hill and I pressed my brakes, only the front brake engaged. So I ended up actually, as I was going down this hill at full speed, flipping over the front of my bike so forcefully that I actually knocked a parking meter out of the concrete. Yeah, it was not a pretty sight. And I remember I remember getting the stuff back from I actually bit through my tongue. That's how bad this was. And I remember when I actually got my helmet back, I actually had a crack all down the middle of the helmet. And my doctors were basically saying that, you know, the only reason you're not a vegetable is because you had that helmet on. And it was so bad. Apparently I was like so concussed that when they were like they were rushing me to the hospital and they were asking me for like a phone number to call, I gave them my home phone number that I memorized when I was like in second grade. And we were like 2 numbers past that. But thankfully I had like my college ID on them. They were able to call the school and figure it out, and so, but thankfully, part of, you know, nobody was watching, or I thought nobody was watching. I ended up getting to the hospital because there was a random grad student that happened to see the whole thing and ended up calling the ambulance and, you know, getting me taken care of. And I didn't even realize, and I've never actually realized the name of this person or who they are, but I'm so thankful because they basically saved my life. But there's a part of me that's like, you know, people in Boston think like I'm whatever, like social justice warrior or whatever. And I was like, no, the one time I leered at a woman, I almost died. And so it's really just about self-preservation. Oh man, I thought that story was gonna be a lot longer, but yeah, that's my story.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Kwasi. I'm so glad you made it. I gotta tell you, riding a bike around Boston is dangerous.
Oh yeah, I've had people I work with get doored, and like that's like my worst nightmare.
Yeah, that's super scary. Back when I was much younger, full disclosure, I'm a fat lady, so when I ride a bike, I look like a circus bear, straight up. No matter what happens, that's your first impression. And for me, bike helmets make that worse. And so most of my life, whenever I've decided to, you know, have a point where I rode a bike for a while, hijinks have ensued. Maybe the worst was I used to ride, I lived in Dorchester, and I lived right at one end of Massachusetts Avenue, one of the main streets in Boston, and I worked in Kendall Square, which is on Massachusetts Avenue. And I told myself, I was like, I don't even have to make a turn. It's just one straight street. Surely I can ride my bike to work. And I almost died many, many times. Maybe the worst thing was a lot of large, like semi trucks take that road, at least parts of it. Yeah. And they would run me off the road often.
Wow.
And I was, you know, at that time, parts of that road didn't have sidewalks. And so I would ride to the side of the pavement, you know, to try and stay out of people's way.
Yeah.
But I would get run off the road all the time. And, you know, maybe it was just that my ass looked that good. Who knows? Hard to say. But one day I was riding and a car to ride, you know, would have hit me if I hadn't moved out of the way. And I had to move right at the last second. And I plowed into a line of people standing outside of Chex Cash waiting for it to open.
Oh, wow.
And just, I did one of those things where I like skidded down the sidewalk, you know, just like took the skin off my legs. And the people at the Chex Cash were so mad at me that they chased me. And I had to like get up and run away and pedal away to work. Left my knees on the sidewalk. So I'm glad that we both lived. But yeah, watch out.
Yeah.
Biking can be scary. I recently tried to get one of those like electric bikes. It's even a worse idea. I crashed into like 5 cars and then I was like, maybe I need to sell this. So my biking skills, maybe not that great. I've got one more performer for you guys. I'm very excited to have him. He's super, super charming, so funny. Back in the before times, you could often see him on Old School Game Show. And everybody here you could see at the Comedy Studio and shows around Boston, which whenever they finally come back to life, I hope I'll see them all again. He's super, super funny, so I'm very excited. Please put your hands together right now for Will Smalley.
Thank you. Thanks, Angela. Thanks for having me. Very nice to be here, wherever here is for you. Yeah, I'm excited to say words again. Haven't said a lot of words to a public audience in a while, and it's going to be, it'll feel good. Yeah, I'll get right into it. My ex-fiance is a monk now. Episcopalian, not Shaolin. It's from my understanding, there's a lot more coffee and donuts and less martial arts involved. But yeah, he is a monk in Cambridge, and that is how our relationship, or why our relationship ended. He wanted to pursue a mission in his life, and we sort of ended 6 years of a relationship, and that is right at the turn of 2013. The relationship was ending, and it sort of was a death of sorts. I guess, you know, as relationships can feel like. It was a little strange. We worked our way out of the relationship at the end of 2012. We lived together for a month as we sort of worked our way out, celebrated the holidays together, did family stuff together, but knew that there was a terminal point to the end of the relationship. And then he moved about a street down, so it was even weirder with the death aspect, where it was just like death, but definite ghosts. You would definitely see the ghost, maybe hang out with the ghost, and watch a show together as you tried to figure out how to end your relationship and move on. We were just doing we were on different missions, different paths, you know, and the bridge that sort of connected us at that moment was not, we did not know in 10 years how strong that structure would be. I often liken it to that sort of stock footage of the like wobbly bridge in the earthquake, also in the Maxwell sound commercial.
Tacoma Bridge. Tacoma.
But we didn't know where we were going to be, and with that, I decided to live in the same apartment that we lived in. I was staying, he was going. I was going to live alone for a time and sort of try that out. And that was a miserable month. I lasted a month. But as with the benefit of sort of ending a relationship that way, sort of knowing that you're going to end it, is you start to make a list of other connections that you've made, and I had that list, and number one on the list was someone very close to me, a friend. We'll call him Mikey, and he was number one on the list. And the day that my ex moved out, Mikey and I had our first date. And I don't know much about relationships, but and maybe I will just say this: in any circumstance, that is too soon. The day that your ex moves out of your house after 6 years together, going on a first date, is ill-advised. But Mikey and I had a lovely connection, a lovely friendship at the time, and I was, I think, trying to put one thing into another. I was trying to say, okay, you will be new partner. Okay, we'll start fresh, but we will be as comfortable as I was with my ex right away. Okay, good. And that didn't work right then. Number two on the list was Miles. It wasn't alphabetical. The list was what it was. But Miles was different. Miles was younger. Miles was kind of a mystery. Miles was there was something about it that was fun. There was a connection as well. We knew each other before. We were friends, and I tried sort of to go on dates with Miles, and we hooked up, and we spent the night. We did, but it was tough to sort of get any traction, and all of that is the right thing at the moment. It just my relationship brain was trying to sort of glom on to the next kind of real connection, when indeed I had, I think, a lot of oats to sow. But the thing with Miles is he invited me on a night to a party that was a sort of 50s spy themed party. There was a popular show at the time on Hulu that was sort of like I think it was like a Thunderbirds spy kind of spoof, and I don't remember what the show was, but it sort of was in that vein. And I went to this party, and I was dressed up sort of as a spy villain. I had an eye patch on and a kind of like a military suit. And it was kind of a weird time. Miles was sort of distant and didn't really hang out much, which was fine. It was a fun party nonetheless. And then Miles went for a walk to get cigarettes, and I said, "Oh, I'll walk with you." And then finally he said, "I can't date you right now." And I said, "Oh, okay, that's cool." I was kind of trying to be calm, cool, collected, and I said, "Oh, that's fine. That's great. We can just be friends and hang out and hook up." And I ended up staying the night there. And here's the problem. The next morning, after all that time alone, all that 1 month sleeping on the couch, trying to feel like someone was there, all that time in that 1 month, I decided I need a roommate. I need someone to live with. And I had reached out, and I had not gotten a lot of great responses, and I was sort of trying to figure out who I could live with, who I could trust, who I could be friends with, and sort of. And at the time, a good friend of mine and fellow comedian, Andrew Mayer, he asked me to lunch and said, "Hey, is that room still available?" And I knew that meant sadness for him because it meant he was ending a relationship as well. But I was happy that we could be sad together. So Andrew was slated to move in that following morning, the night of that spy party. And that was all well and good. I ended up staying, like I said, over at Miles in a kind of awkward, but we hooked up one more time. Phone was dying before I went to sleep, and I knew that was not a good thing, but I sort of soldiered on. Andrew had Russian movers coming at 10 a.m., and I was ready to go well before that. I woke up, took my eye patch and took my suit, and I hopped into my pickup truck at the time, and I went to start my pickup truck, and my pickup truck didn't start. It had problems. It was leaking oil. It was on also its last legs. Sort of everything was dying at once, and I didn't really want to fix a lot of it. It had leaked oil before on the in front of my house. I parked on the street in front of my house, and my landlady yelled at me for leaking oil on the street, and asked me and made me clean it as if she owned the street. And I did. I tried. It didn't come out. But anyway, the truck didn't start, and this is 9 o'clock in the morning, and the truck's not starting. And I'm trying, and I'm trying, and I'm trying, and I'm trying, and the truck's not starting. And I can't reach Andrew because my phone is dead, and the truck is not starting. And finally, I get the truck to start. I'm in Cambridge. I'm on Fairmont Street. I get to Western Avenue, and at that stoplight, the truck stalls out. Mm-hmm. I'm at Western Avenue and Memorial Drive, and I'm trying, and I'm trying. People are beeping at me, causing, and I get the truck to start. I take a left onto Memorial Drive, and I'm like chugging along. I'm now like a 1930s cartoon, like old truck, just like, and I get to another stoplight, and I stall out again. I'm on the BU Bridge. I'm stalled out. I'm chugging. I'm trying. I start up the truck. I'm like, oh, I've got no way to contact Andrew. I've got Russian movers who are going to be upset. I'm chugging. I made it to the J-Way. I'm like, okay, great. I'm on the J-Way, and no one ever says, great, I'm on the J-Way. I'm chugging. I have 6 lights to hit. I hit them all. I make it to, I believe it's Pond Street and Jamaica Plain. I'm trying to take a left. I stall out again. I'm like, oh my God. At this time, I had to like get out of the vehicle and pull over on Pond Street. And I'm like so close to being home. And I've got my suit on, and I'm not wearing the patch anymore, but I'm trying to get home before my new roommate. And listen, Andrew Mayer is my dearest friend. This was a new friendship at the time. We were close, but we weren't as close as we are now. So I'm trying to not be the asshole who stayed over at a boy's house the night before and couldn't get home to let him in. My landlady didn't even know who he was. She just trusted me that I was gonna pick someone, so he couldn't even like talk to her. And so I'm still on Pond Street, and I finally get back in, and I start the car back up. It starts up, and I'm just trying to glide and hit all the lights. And I finally make it back to my street, and my street is a dead end one way, and I live at the top of this hill, Weld Hill in Jamaica Plain. And I'm trying to, so every time I would pull up to my house, I had to pull down to the street and back all the way up. And I'm like, this truck is not going to make this. And if it does, I'm just gonna let it roll down the hill, and I'm gonna meet Andrew Mayer at the door, and they're gonna have a spot open for him to park. I finally make it home. I make it. It's about 9:53. I get to the front door. I open the door, run in, change so I'm not looking like a 1950s villain. And Andrew gets there, and I'm like huffing and puffing, and he's like, hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? And I'm like, I can't even explain right now how arduous my journey was to get home. But I got home. The Russians did it like that. He moved in. I met my best friend that I think I've had in life. And the full end of that story is the number one on that list, Mikey. We got married in November, and that's my story. It was a time I had no idea how I would get home.
All right. Woo.
Thank you so much. Will Smalley, everybody.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. I think, honestly, when you break up with someone, it's really hard to figure out how to shift back into other gear. And I don't know about you, but the most fraught part of that is when you know the other person has a new partner who might be a better person than you. And like when that person is God, he's probably a better person than you. That is really rough. So you can be forgiven for, like, I would just be a ball of resentment that I would not be able to figure that out. So you can be forgiven for taking a few tries to get that right. That was amazing, you guys. That's our show. All the stories were fantastic. Thank you guys so much for coming and being here. I really appreciate it. This was a great one, and I loved having you. I hope I'll see you all again soon. I hope to see you in real regular life sometime, and we can cough on each other and it will be fine. Yeah. And I'll probably fart on you because I'm 1,000 years old and that's just what I do now.
Can I share one thing, Miss Angela?
Please do.
So for the information, so that we're all informed, Steve Harvey Ricky Smiley and I believe it's D.L. Hughley got together and they're doing a whole movement trying to make sure that folks get to the polls. That's everybody. They just happen to be big stars on the radio. So they connected with what's called Vote 411. That's what I want to share. I want to share that link because it doesn't matter who you are. You're kind of checking how to register to vote, or you're not sure about the candidates, to give profiles for that, regulations in your county, in your state, in your city, that whole piece. So they got together to do that. I just want to share that. So if anybody's thinking about voting, not sure how to register, and think it's complicated, right on your phone, you can use this link. And it's called Vote 411. And that's 411 information. So it gives you all the information that you need.
Thank you very much. That's fantastic. Yeah, Vote 411 to find out about local candidates, national candidates. It's important
all the questions. Yeah.
It's important to vote. I know in the last couple months, I've spent a lot of time writing to my city councilors and to the mayor. At one point, I just started using it like a diary, like a letter to a therapist kind of thing. Just, tell them whatever you happen to be thinking. Make it your own, and whatever your complaints are. and that the crazier, the more they're likely to read it. So I appreciate that a lot. And I hope we all get together and make whatever part of the world we're living in a better place, because we could use it. Thank you guys very, very much. We'll be here next week. Check out the Comedy Studio. They have shows all week long. And I hope to see you again soon. Thanks for being at Tales from the Inside.
Thank you, everybody. Nice to meet you all.
Bye. Nice to meet you as well.
Ooh, pizza's here.